Hi, this is Aimee
and Melissa. We are a couple of retired Texas teachers who are CALTs, Certified Academic Language Therapists. We started our own businesses, and now we have a podcast called
The Dyslexia Duo. So join us for our informative podcast, where we'll delve into dyslexia, covering the topics that affect parents, therapists, teachers, practitioners, and anyone who wants to learn more. We'll guide you through everything you need to know, from the first signs to the intricacies of dyslexia curriculum placement and beyond.
This season, we will cover the referral process, what to expect when your child or student is dyslexic, the generational impacts of dyslexia, and how to support those affected.
Come join us.
Hey, Aimee.
So today we have a special guest on with us. Now, just to kind of explain, we have a very diverse audience in a very short time. We started doing this in June. We've gone global. We've jumped into the top 10% of all podcasts of all time with our recordings, so it's very exciting. We have teachers, we have parents, we have dyslexia therapists, dyslexia practitioners, decision makers, policy makers, admin, all kinds of people listening to the podcast. So we're so excited that we have Kareem Weaver on with us today. So Kareem, would you like us to call you Mr. Weaver, Kareem?
Come on, just call me Kareem.
Okay, just want to be sure.
All good. All good. Glad to be with you today.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about you.
Sure. So, longtime educator, father, husband, teacher. I worked in the Department of Juvenile Justice for a little while. And also, I was an administrator in a K-12 orphanage school in South Carolina. I was an administrator, of all things, right? Who knew that orphanages had schools, but they do. Some do K-12. And what else? So I was in psychology. My background is actually clinical community psychology. That's what I was studying for. And I wanted to teach, but, I wanted to make some money first, so I wanted to do that. I'm a first-generation college kid, then realized life's not guaranteed to you. You don't have time to waste. Had a health challenge and realized I better do what I've been called to do. So I started teaching and done several roles in the school system, leading classrooms, schools, and departments within systems, and then trained principals and teachers. Was a funder for a while. I've done a bunch of stuff. And now, I had worked with the NAACP to help them push the civil rights agenda on education and literacy, and did that for a few years. And now I run a nonprofit to help all kids learn to read.
So is your nonprofit Fulcrum?
Yeah, it's Fulcrum. Full and complete reading is a universal mandate.
That's what I was asking.
It used to be FUCLUN. It was like full and complete reading now, or something like that, like Fucklin. And my co-founder was like, no, friend, no, you can't. Just trust me. We're going to do something different. I was like, no, but they can reading now. Like, no, it matters. So we went with, she chose Fulcrum. And so, and so I guess she was right, but we're a small shop. We help systems, districts, states, mainly policy-wise, and getting their literacy plans together and doing a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, we're just trying to get all kids to read. That's our whole thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Have you visited Texas and done anything here?
Not much. A couple of things. So the superintendent of the San Antonio Independent School District is a guy named Aimee Aquino. I think it's Aimee in San Antonio. He asked me to come out. We worked together with new leaders. He was the chief academic officer of this training program. I ran the Western region. So he asked me to come out and kind of set the stage for their literacy initiative going forward. So I did that. Also, the International Dyslexia Association had their 75th conference or what have you. And it was in a city in Fort Worth. Austin. Fort Worth, right. So I was there for that. So I've done a few things, but I haven't been working with many entities in Texas. Although there was an initiative, and when I was a funder, there was a group that wanted to open a school for dyslexic children. And I was a funder at the time, and they were funding like innovative things, and it didn't pass the muster of I was like, you know what? No. We're gonna fund this thing. It's like $250,000. We're going to fund this thing. They want to help dyslexic kids learn to read. That's the innovation. Newsflash. I know people want the sexy silver bullet. No, guess what? teaching all kids to read, that's what we want. So if they're willing to step
Yes.
out and do that, we're going to support them. So anyway, so that's my connection to Texas. But other than that, nah, a lot of other places, but not the Lone Star State.
So you had said that you felt you were led to where you are, what you're doing. I feel
Mhm.
also that I was led to my career in helping kids with dyslexia. So what exactly was the thing that made you feel like you were led to this path? Was there one thing or is it a number of things?
It's a bunch of things. First of all, don't let me forget. There's something else in Texas
Oh,
that I almost forgot. I'll tell you later. But there's a
okay.
district that the boosters kind of run the roost
Mm.
in
That's
Texas,
that's a lot
and
of
I could talk
districts
about
in
that too.
Texas.
Yeah, I know, and it's we should talk about that at some point. Okay, but what led me to, so I had a friend. I didn't know that a lot of people in my family are dyslexic. I didn't know that. It runs in families. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. In fact, I didn't know much about dyslexia at all.
Right.
But when I got to Morehouse, a college friend of mine, Bill Cosby's son,
Mhm.
Ennis Cosby, may rest in peace.
Oh,
Yeah.
He's dyslexic. He was my study partner.
Oh,
Ennis is a cool
wow.
dude, man. Yeah, easygoing guy, tall, dark and handsome, easygoing dude. Everybody loved Ennis, and he was dyslexic,
Yeah.
and he was
hmm.
a horrible study partner. Oh my gosh, drove me crazy, crazy. Because he had gotten to the point where I think it was that if he just graduates, his dad would give him $1 million.
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah, just because he was struggling.
Yeah.
Like, and so I think a lot of people think that the issue is motivation.
Right.
If I could just motivate you enough, you'll do the stuff.
Right.
It wasn't motivation. He was dyslexic. They didn't realize
Yeah.
so they ended up, he was like he's like a CD student, barely making it, passing classes. Sometimes it wasn't even a D. He was struggling. Then he went to the summer program at, I think it was Landmark College.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
they
we heard
focus on
Jonathan
kids with
Mooney
dyslexia.
talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they, in one summer, like turned him around. All of a sudden, he came back like an AB student. I was like, what did they do?
Wow.
What is that? And Ennis was like, listen, Kareem, I know you talk about the school to prison pipeline, but I got news for you, friend. He called everybody friend. Friend, if you have dyslexia, nobody knows it. You're already in jail. It's just
Hmm.
different.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
we decided he was going to be a special ed teacher because he wanted to help kids with dyslexia and other special needs. I just wanted to teach in the hood and do that. But we kind of agreed that that's what we were going to do. And he lost his life. Someone killed him.
Yeah.
Was
Mm.
murdered by the side of the road. May he rest in
Yeah.
peace.
Oh
But
my
he really
gosh.
wanted to be a special ed teacher because he wanted to support kids with dyslexia. That was my first exposure to it,
Mm.
about the difference that could be made if
Hmm.
the kids just get what they need.
Hmm.
So
You
you
know.
witnessed it firsthand as a
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah, as my friend. He's my guy. Yeah, and then as a teacher, and then I have a daughter who's dyslexic and a nephew, and it's all in my family. But to see her struggle and me not know what's going on, even though Ennis told me about it, I didn't know what it was. I didn't get it. People think they understand, they really don't. I didn't
Mhm.
know. And my daughter was a softball player, and she was very good at softball, but we didn't pursue college really hard because scholarships and stuff for softball because she wasn't really eligible. You
Yeah.
have to have certain grades to even play.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so she just kind of given up. And then when we finally got her tested the summer before her junior year, that's a whole nother story.
Mm.
Come to find out she was dyslexic, and just the knowledge of that and giving her a few tools, she did great in the classroom. It was a
Hmm.
struggle. It was a struggle. We had tutors and all type of stuff. But then she's all state softball for 2 years, and people are recruiting her and all type of stuff. So it just was a matter of knowledge and getting her the support that she needed.
She needed those
I just
accommodations in place in college, and she was smart enough to get through all of her public education. But the sheer amount of reading and writing that you have to do, and like
yes,
everybody's only student for each class, and so you have what, four or
yeah.
five of those types of classes with that bulk load like that. It's hard to keep up.
That's what people don't understand. A lot of people. So if you're a kid, the teachers would give at her high school. The thing was 30 minutes a day. Everybody give 30 minutes a day of homework. That's what they were
Yeah.
trying to aim for. Okay, she's got 5 classes,
Hmm.
30 minutes a day. That's you. So you think 2.5 hours of that's a lot of homework anyway. But
Hmm.
for her, that 30-minute homework assignment, man, that's taking her like an hour and a half for real,
Yes.
Hmm.
like a good hour and a half. Now you multiply that times 5
Yes.
every night at minimum every night.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so
And
you
that's
get out
after
of
a full day of school.
full day of school and all the drama that goes with that. And then you
Mhm.
want to play an activity or something. Let's say you get home at 5 o'clock because you play softball or soccer or something. So what, you're supposed to stay up until 12, 1 o'clock in the morning every night, and you haven't even
Mhm.
eaten any. I mean, at some point, kids tap out,
Yeah.
Yes.
and they may not tap. So they may still go to class, but mentally and emotionally, they've tapped out. They're just not engaging. And so the school says, well, we're going to have a social emotional program to get the kids to, no, friend, you got to give them what they need in this
Mhm.
reading class, so that they don't need a band-aid. What they need is everyone to be on board instructionally
Mhm.
to make sure that they're getting what they need day in and day out.
I completely agree with that. We've had Texas dyslexia law in place in
Mm-hmm.
Texas, obviously, because this is Texas dyslexia law, but it's been in place since 86, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that meaning that there had to be on every public and now charter campus somebody who can provide dyslexia instruction. And they have to be fully trained in a dyslexia curricula in order to provide that instruction. And so we're very lucky here in Texas to have that in place. Now, does it differ from district to district or campus to campus what the curricula is? Yeah, and that can be a problem sometimes. But
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, when our kids are, and we have to have, every teacher has to have X hours of understanding of what dyslexia is in order to re-up their certification. So, these are things that we have in place, which is really nice. But, everybody interprets even the same information in a different way. And so we still have kids that are slipping through the cracks or flying under the radar with all the
Mm-hmm.
identification pieces.
Yeah. So there's a policy piece that comes from this,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to remember a lot of school systems and states have what they call the discrepancy model.
Yeah.
So it's officially an issue when a child is 2 years behind.
Yes.
Well, I mean, 2 years, a kid is 2 years behind. You've already taken tread off the tires. That's
Mm-hmm.
2 years emotionally, psychologically, mentally. That's 2 years of feeling like you're just all kind of negative attributions, self attributions. What's wrong with me? That's 2 years of that. And a lot of kids just tap out
Yeah.
within that. So you have to have an early identification system where kids are recognized for having some risk factors or
Mm-hmm.
dyslexia or something. It's got to be systemic. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the policies that matters most is early identification. So screen kids early, K2, so that they
Mm-hmm.
don't have to wait till they fail to we actually figure things out. Texas has had some. So I remember Clements and I remember some other folks. That's back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then George Bush was a governor for a while, and George Bush was the one. His brother's dyslexic,
Yep. Oh,
and
yeah.
so yeah. So a lot of people, Texas has been fortunate enough to have leaders who care about this issue
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
who are willing to kind of go against the grain and make it a priority policy wise. But there's still more work to do.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
there's still some
Well,
things that Texas got to get done.
a big component of that is the teacher education program
Oh
itself.
my
Mm-hmm.
goodness, yes indeed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an elementary certified teacher, and when I went through my elementary education undergrad work,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything about dyslexia when I left college.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge component into why a lot of teachers don't understand what the warning signs are, what to look for with dyslexia,
And you're not alt
what it
cert
might sound
either.
like.
You're not alt cert. You went in for
Right.
elementary
I
ed.
went in for
Mm-hmm.
elementary education. So I
Mhm.
should be the first stop to
Mm-hmm.
recognize if somebody is dyslexic
And
or if
that's
they are
still
a struggling
happening.
reader.
That's still
It
happening.
is. It
And
is.
it's surprising to me with everything that we know. I can, when I got my master's and I got it in curriculum and instruction, one professor one day talked about dyslexia. And I was like, really? This is it? We're talking about
Mhm.
reading instruction still, and this is all. They were still talking about Lucy Calkins and Fontes and Pinnell
Mhm.
and all of those.
Well, let me just say, while we were talking and you mentioned it, I jumped on the National Council of Teacher Quality's website and looked at higher ed for reading foundations for Texas. And to your credit, to our credit as a state, there are some schools that have great programs. I
Mm-hmm.
see A's and A pluses down here, Texas Southern and Dallas Baptist and
Mm-hmm.
Slow Ross and Houston Baptist, other schools like that. But then there's about 17 programs with an F rating.
Yeah.
So these are higher. So these are the sort. Now, listen, I know colleges don't like this. I don't care.
It's
Like I
okay.
understand. No one likes to be judged. No one likes to be, who is these nonprofits that are pointing their fingers at us? Well, listen, let me tell you something. Yes, we care about the football team. Yes, we care about, who wins state at the high school. Oh, that's fine. But you're giving public money oftentimes, some of these universities. And part of that is to help prepare our teachers. And there aren't enough touchdowns you can score that's going to make up for the fact that some schools are pumping out teacher candidates who are not ready.
Right.
They have paid their money, they've paid their dues, they've learned all the different philosophies and theories, but they don't know how to teach a doggone child to read. That's a problem. And there's a policy part to this, but then there's also some responsibility on the presidents or the chancellors or the provosts or whoever, the dean of education. They got to get their house in order. And if it's a matter of resources, okay, fine. Well, let's find the money for that, either public or private or something. But you have to be able and humble enough to retool and say, we're going to align our program, our practices with what evidence shows the greatest number of kids need to learn to read. Because if we're not doing that at the teacher preparation level, these universities, then we're just hamsters on the guinea pig wheel. Like we're going to keep scurrying along, and the next wave of teachers is going to come in, and they're going to go back to the same methods that you just mentioned, because that's what they've been taught in the graduate program.
So I went to a university that's not real far from me, without naming names, and it's the leading state college for teachers, and it has been the leading state college for teachers for decades, right? And I can remember moving from that transition when you do all your lower level classes to your actual field of study. And I remember, because at the time I was taught with whole language, right? You see it, say it, right? And so I didn't know that words made sounds. I didn't know how to unblend it. I didn't know the individual sounds, the phonemes. And I can remember asking one of my professors, I said, what if I have a second grade class and they don't know, one of my students doesn't know how to read the word dog? And she talked about flashcards, and she talked about bringing in books. I mean, it was a whole language movement, because I went to college for my bachelor's in the 80s and 90s. And so I go, no. What if they can't read the word dog? How do I help them? Because I didn't understand. You took the word apart, you unblended it, you segmented the sounds back together. And she basically said the same thing to me, slower and louder, because I wasn't catching on. I said, no. How do I teach them how to read the word dog? There's got to be something beyond what we're saying. And she looked at me and she goes, you read what it says in the teacher's manual. And I went, and so basically she's telling me, shut up, because she didn't know either, And so I just kind of kept quiet the rest of that year, because I was like, evidently I don't know what to do. And I prayed I didn't get a second grade class. I didn't get a second grade class. I got a sixth grade class my first year I taught. And they were migrant workers. And a lot of those kids couldn't read and write. And I didn't know what to do.
That's right. That's right. That is all too common, unfortunately. So people think, okay, well, that's just kindergarten, first, second grade. So as long as I'm not there, like you say, I'm good, probably. But then you end up in high school or middle school or fifth grade, and your kids can't read there either. And so at some point, we have to realize that all teachers are reading teachers. You have your content, biology, math, whatever, but you're also a reading teacher. Because if they can't read, I got news for you. That history class, the U.S. history class, they're not going to be able to read anything. And they're going to be captive to whatever they're being told, as opposed to being able to read things for themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
So your experience, teaching that grade, you realize, hey, this is something that I need regardless of what grade level. There are teachers all across the country who are dealing with this. And I'll say this. So I'm looking at this site and I see Houston Baptist and Sul State and Texas A&M, Texarkana, Dallas, Midwestern State, and all these. These are not the schools who are playing for the college football championship. And so we got to get to the point where we're not worried so much about the brand of the school. The shield, oh my gosh, I love that burnt orange, or I love this, or I love that. That's fine.
Right.
That's fine. But you need a little Ann Richards in you, where you just tell it like it is, and someone who will just call it like it is. And this school needs to get better. And I don't care what they're doing on Saturday afternoons at the football field. This school is doing a great job preparing teachers. We're going to elevate that school. Or I'm going to recruit teachers from that school to serve in our district, because we're worried about our children and who's prepared to teach them to read. And we can still cheer for our favorite team. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to education, forget about the brand. Forget about the shield. Forget about all the rest of that stuff. Who's going to help your kid? I'm going to say this. I had told you to remind me, but I'm going to say this right now. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, I wrote it down so I'd remind you.
I know.
I won't name the district because, I don't think that's right. But I was giving a speech somewhere in Texas, and a group of folks came out, and we had a lunch afterwards, or an engagement afterwards, and it was a bunch of boosters for this high school district, and they didn't really seem too interested in this whole reading thing. Like, it was like, whatever, they were there, they were polite, it was a nice lunch and whatever. But I realized I'm not getting too far with these guys. They didn't seem to be too interested. They're more football type guys. And finally, I was like, you know what? I'm wasting my time here. But I said, you know what? I turned to one guy and said, you know what? If a district was really serious about winning state, they would fix this. They're like, what? I was like, yeah. Some of these districts think they're into football or sports. So they don't really want to. If they really wanted to win state, they would focus on this. I had their full attention. They're like, what exactly do you mean? I was like, listen, man, your offensive line, half the kids who should be on your offensive line are ineligible. That linebacker that you want, that you look, he's 6 foot and runs a 4.6 40, and he's ineligible. Whichever districts actually get serious about this and gets kids reading, man, they're going to widen their talent pool 3x. I was like, but who am I? I'm not a football guy. I'm not a booster. I don't know anything. It's like, but whoever figures this out there, and they'll be winning state every year. All of a sudden, they got serious. Like, okay, so what exactly are you? Let me tell you something. Within the year, they had a plan. It was called like State 2027 or something like this. Plan had a binder. The superintendent had been moved out. They had they moved quickly, and they made changes. And I was like, oh my gosh. Oh, to win state.
Wow.
I felt bad. I felt kind of dirty, to be honest with you. Like, it's going, but it's Texas.
That's not on you.
I was
That's
going to
on
say,
them.
that's Texas.
But, at the same time, at least they're doing something about it. Like, they have hired a person who's focusing on literacy. They got these goals. They got a plan. They got interventions. They got the whole, man, the boosters did more than all the policymakers and all these other people who talk a good game. And it was the boosters. They said, no, we want this for our children. They got their own. You can judge them for their motives if you want to, but they were moving and they made changes. I was like, my God, I wish we had that all over the country. Just people who just say, no. We have a goal. This is part of our goal, whether it's economic development, whether it's winning state, whether it's whatever your thing is, literacy, if it's at the core, you have to act like it.
Well,
You have to move with purpose.
And I've always said, I've been retired for a few years from education, like actually retired, like I have a pension and everything. But I can remember that, whenever we needed something for the dyslexia department, we needed a new curriculum, we needed more teachers, we needed more whatever. We wouldn't get it until we got a superintendent who had a child of his own who was dyslexic. It had to be important to him or her in order to make it important for the rest of the district, and I appreciate it, but at the same time, I wish it didn't have to come to that. I wish it was just a realization that everybody knew how important it was.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, the thing that got these guys over the finish line was when I mentioned the name. I said, you ever heard of Dexter Manley? For those of you who are old football heads, you'll remember Dexter Manley. He played for Oklahoma State. Big old dude, and was like NFL Defensive Player of the Year. He was a very good player. I was like, yeah, he was dyslexic. He graduated, but he couldn't read. I said, most kids like Dexter Manley never get out of high school, or they don't play. They're ineligible. I was like, you got Dexter Manley's all in your district, and they can't even play. They were like, oh my God. They were like, and they got it. They got it. So the question is for us, and like you mentioned, like, what is it going to take for us to take this seriously?
Right.
What is it? What is it? For some, it's pictures of smiling kids. For others, it's football. But at the end of the day, parents who have children who have this concern or this learning difference, like, they're usually at the forefront because they feel the tip of the spear right on their neck.
Unfortunate thing is, in the elementary level where that is so crucial to get that early intervention, there's not those drivers like the football and some of the other things that people value so much. It would be nice if there was another kind of push in the elementary age where people would really have that desire and see the long-term benefits of that for their child. And I think that parents are starting to understand. I think parents are starting to gain more awareness through things like that, what we're doing, what other teachers are doing, and other dyslexia therapists are spreading the word in their districts. I know in our district I worked in before I resigned, we were doing parent education trainings at least once a year, sometimes more. So
Mhm.
that, it's a step in the right
It
direction.
is.
Yeah.
But sometimes the actual administrators who are in these meetings that go through the identification process, sometimes they don't have the buy-in with whether or
Mhm.
not somebody looks like they have dyslexia.
Well, I mean,
And
yeah, it looks like. I mean, can you glance at somebody and say, "Yep"? I mean,
that's just
really,
it. Like
yeah.
they have their preconceived notions of what dyslexia looks like or what dyslexia
Mhm.
is based on their own experience or based on what they believe through whatever they've experienced in their entire life. But they might cause some rifts with the identification process as well. So it seems like there just needs to be some reform across the
Mhm.
board for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, in Texas also, I mean, if you look at the Excel in Ed has this policy and implementation map where you can see these early literacy policies and how
Mhm.
many of the policies the states have adopted. And Texas has 10 of the 18, 3 of them are fully implemented, 7 are kind of partially implemented.
Mhm.
For a state as serious about its kids as Texas is, which I love about the state, like that should be no different than Mississippi or Alabama or North
Right.
Carolina, where it's 18 out of 18. There's no reason for that. There
Right.
are some states that have this ideological issue with things. And so, California, we can't get a policy passed because there's these groups blocking things.
Mm.
New York has 0 of the 18 policies. But then
Oh,
down in Alabama, it's 18 out of 18. Like, they're like, forget all that. We love our kids. You can kiss our
Right.
behind. Texas got to get dogged about advocating for its kids. Now that's at a policy level, but there are some things, whether it's making sure you've got evidence-based interventions, whether it's making sure there's literacy coaches available, whether it's making sure that there's no 3Qing going on. I know there's some stuff that's passed on
No,
that, but
it's
it's not
still
like
happening. It's still
it's
happening
still
to
happening.
yeah, it's still
That's right.
happening out this way.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's right. And so those are the type of things that they just need to happen, and it's going to take money, but shoot, it costs us money not to do the right thing
That's
too,
exactly what I was
because
gonna
we
say. It's much more costly to not
that's right.
provide the correct intervention, remediation, whatever you wanna call it, for our students in the long run. We can
That's
buy
right.
into these color-coded reading programs that look great when they come in,
Yeah.
nice and boxed and shrink wrapped, because I've been there for the unwrapping for that kind of stuff too, and I just kinda roll my eyes, but, and it looks really pretty, but it doesn't do anything, and we need to start we just need to get better. I don't even know how to put it
Well,
right.
there are some things that can be done to get better, and then you're
Okay.
exactly right. It's not about the shiny new object. I mean, sure, there may be some programs that are helpful, wonderful. A lot of people think, oh, there's a dyslexic kid in my classroom. Well, when they go to the resource room or the special ed room, they'll fix them.
Right.
Okay, they're
Right.
going to go down that hall. They'll do that, and then they'll bring them back to me. So I don't feel
absolutely.
necessarily the response. No, no, no. They have a right to free and appropriate
Mhm.
public education.
Mhm.
That means that in regular classroom instruction, regular tier one, regular class, they have a right to get what they need too.
Yep.
Free and
Mhm.
appropriate public. And so that the materials that you're using, that's how your teachers are trained. That's how the principals are and the coaches are supporting. That is all the things that go into regular classroom instruction. They have a right to that,
Mhm.
to be ready right now.
Mhm.
And so I really want to make sure people understand that, because oftentimes we think, oh, sure, yeah, we have a great intervention program. Okay, well, first of all, you can save yourself a lot of time, energy, and money. You can save the kid a lot of hassle and heartache. You can save the parents a lot of grief if you don't wait until they need that intervention,
Right.
that you handle it in tier one regular classroom instruction.
Mhm.
That's the big issue.
Mhm.
So your curriculum ought to be, I know the TEA has a list of things that they approve, and they actually worked with a group that creates their own curriculum, which I think that's great. Forget the name of them. They design it how you want it.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Your materials have to be lined up.
Mhm.
So part of that should be, hey, we want you to create something that will work for this group of kids. Because if the dyslexic kids are getting what they need, newsflash, everybody else is going to get what they need too.
Mhm.
So
That's
it's
right.
it's not a, it's not about singling them out. It's centering them. Don't tell me about. I don't want to hear about equity. I want you to make sure that when you're picking and choosing stuff, that you put my kid in the center.
Mhm.
Because if they get what they need, then all the other kids are going to get what they need. That's just
Mhm.
to me, that's common sense.
Mhm.
But your
Mhm,
materials have to
mhm.
line up, your schedule, your budget, your calendar, all that type of stuff. And it shouldn't just be when they get to resource or special ed. It should be
Right.
regular classroom instruction. Kids have a right to that. You're not giving them something. It's not like you're giving
Mhm.
them a gift. They have a right to that. And that's where the
That's
civil
right.
rights aspect of this comes into
And
play.
their dyslexia doesn't disappear when they step foot into the general education
No,
classroom.
no.
Right.
So
Well,
that's where the accommodations are so crucial, and for teachers to
Mhm.
understand how vital it is for them to follow those accommodations to the letter.
Mhm.
well, even in the
Mhm.
tiered, because we talk about the three tiers, tier one is everybody, tier two is that smaller group, and tier three is the
Yeah.
more intensive, sped resource room. And tier one and tier two, even though you might have some instructional coaches that are coming in and supporting one, they're not there all the time. They may have three different campuses, right? So they're not there
Mhm.
to support all the time. Teachers are still given a lot of autonomy on how they
Yeah.
interpret those various curricula and how they provide that instruction at tier one and tier two.
Yeah. Well, Amy, a lot of people look at it as I'm a teacher, and so it's
Yeah.
disrespectful for you to tell me what to do. I need to have control over my classroom, and that's respectful for me as a teacher. I understand that thinking, but it can't come out of an insecure mindset of
Mm-hmm.
saying, they don't respect me as a professional. So if they give me more autonomy, okay, listen, if you prove to me that you can have great outcomes for kids every year, that you're a great curriculum designer, you're a great instructor, and you have vertical alignment from K-12, you have all this wonderful thing. Okay, great. But you know what? Most people are human beings. They're not Superman or Superwoman.
Mm-hmm.
And it is important to have materials at work and the expectation that we're going to actually implement this.
Mm-hmm.
And you can sprinkle your own teacher sauce on it. Of course, teachers do that.
Mm-hmm.
No teacher is the same. No
Right.
one's saying you got to be a robot. Let's not play games. First of all, it's not about you. It's just not. It's about the kid and what the kid needs. And if you're the kind of teacher that I think you are, which is a conscientious, loving, caring, respectful, kind, supportive teacher, you want what's best for the child.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole, we have to move away from this lone wolf mindset
Mm-hmm.
and also feeling like no one should tell us what to do. No, no, friend. Like if you're understanding that rights and duties go together, that you're part of a collective, and that to get the kids that you're talking about, the kids who have learning difference or processing difference, or they've got dyslexia or dysgraphia or dyscalculia or whatever, if you want to get those kids, man, you need tools. You need time to prepare for those tools. You need consistency. You need leadership. You need oral language development. You need all these things. And we don't have time to play games and worry
Yeah.
about your ego and feelings of security or insecurity about this stuff. We just need good materials, and we need you to apply them with your own teacher flair that only you can bring. But it's
Right.
not disrespectful to say that we got to have this.
Right.
And districts and superintendents who can't say that or they're scared or whatever, I don't even know. As a board, you have to hire courage and leadership
Yeah.
and make sure that people communicate well to people and put kids first.
Right.
And most teachers understand that. Like, no one's going to be offended if the kids are learning to read and enjoying school and loving it. Like, who will get mad at that? If you got an issue with that, then the issue is with you,
Yeah.
not the rule, the curriculum, or whatever else. So,
Absolutely.
So, what do
So
you think that parents' role would be in helping
uh,
to drive this change?
hoo-wee. Well, it's a great question. I should ask you for, I have an answer, but I'm going to ask you all, because I'm sure you hear from parents all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What are the tensions that parents face in terms of getting involved? And when you have a child with dyslexia or a learning difference,
Mm-hmm.
what are some common tensions that parents face in terms of the expectations versus how they need this job? I've got an answer, but I'd love to hear from you all what you think your perspective is.
So
Well,
coming at it as a parent, now
Hmm.
my child didn't have dyslexia, but they had different learning problems.
Hmm.
Walking in even to like an ARD committee or even a 504 committee where I'm the lone
Hmm.
wolf representing my child and having 15 people around a table looking at me, telling me what my child needs. And I'm going, okay, maybe I don't know. It
Mm.
just, it makes you feel like it's an intimidating way to walk into an ARD or into a 504. And I can see a lot of, and I'm an educator. And I can see how parents who maybe aren't in the education system or maybe just don't know what they should know, thinking, oh, this school's telling me this. Okay. And the school does want, for the most part, the best for their child, but maybe they
Hmm.
have misinformation. That's kind of
Hmm.
some of the things. Where can parents go to get the information, not the snake oil, but the information they need?
Right. Melissa,
I
what do you think?
hear, well, from my own experience with my son who had ADHD, teachers would say, I don't have time to provide those accommodations for your son. I have 150 students and I just don't have the time to do this. I tell you what, that lit a fire in me. And I snapped back at that teacher. You don't have 150 students like my son. You probably have 5 students like my son. You have time. So I get those types of things. And then again, still back to the administration. Sometimes the administration is a difficult beast.
Yeah. So let me just say, listening to your stories about it, you know, I can see why this podcast is popular because parents, like, that's what it is. Parents have to wrestle with that, you know, and I would say for a parent, the first thing you have to do is prepare yourself not to be liked.
Yeah.
And if your number one goal is to remain being liked and popular and accepted and all the rest, it's not going to go too well for your child. Like because the institution is going to move right along. You have to be okay with not getting invited places. And listen, there are times when I, as a father, was trying to advocate for my kids, or for my daughter, especially with dyslexia, where I knew it was going to be a problem when I sent the email. I already knew. I was a principal and a teacher and all that. So I had a reputation. People knew me. And so they would give me some grace. But if you send that email, if you have that meeting and you don't nod your head and go along with it, listen, you're on the outside looking in. You are no longer in. So if your currency is being accepted by the schools and being liked and having favorite parent status and being accepted by the PTA and invited to this, and you drive to the field, all that type of stuff, you're going to lose some friends. I hope it's not like this, but you have to be okay with that. First of all, you got to decide it's either my kid or it's these relationships over here. It is not that you want to make enemies. I'm not saying that, but you can't let them dangle acceptance over your head. You have to be willing to move without that. So that's the first thing. And you all kind of sound like you had to run into that. So, and that's like parents, for some, that's a loss because that's your friend group.
Yeah.
You know, you get along with the teachers and other parents, and you don't want to be known as a troublemaker. Like you want to be, come on now. For some of us, that's the social. So like, that's the first thing. And kids need you to choose them over the institution. If you're not willing to choose your child over the institution, I got questions. I got questions about your bona fides as a parent. Like, it's kids first. For me, it's kids first. I want to be friendly. I want to get along. I want to do all this. But this IEP or this this is serious. This is my child. And so I want to be a team player. I want to get along. But if it gets down to it, they need to understand whose side you're on. And the kid needs to know. And so with that comes holding them to the goals, making sure that you're documenting things properly, that you're not just signing things because they tell you to, that you have to understand things. You know, there was a court case recently in Tennessee, and it was upheld on appeal. So this is now precedent. This is very, very important. There was a young man, Williamsburg versus whomever, whatever county it was. I'll get the reference for you in a minute, but the kid graduated with a 3.4 grade point average. They're designated they have a special ed classification, 3.4 GPA, and they graduated. The kid can't read. Kid can't read. They're dyslexic. Kid can't read.
I think I just saw that.
Yeah. It's a very, very important deal, precedent setting. And what the court said was, you know, when they sued, the court said it's not enough to just meet the goals. Because, you know, for the IEP, you've got goals and all that. It's not enough. It's not enough to just have an achievement like graduation or to be eligible. That's not enough. The court said and affirmed on appeal that children, for free and appropriate public education, they have a right to make progress on certain foundational things. In other words, and parents got to know this, your kid, they have to learn to read. They have to actually make progress on these things that are going to allow them to do life well, not just, hey, because they'll just pass you along and give you the grade and all that. That's not enough. Yeah. Your kid has a right to more than that. So as an advocate and as a parent, you can't just go along to get along. The goals are important, but it's more than just the goals. They have to help your kid make reasonable progress on the things that they need to be successful in life. It may be uncomfortable for the district. The school system may not like it, but they have a right to that. And so I say that's for your listeners to know that you actually have federal statute on your side, and you actually have legal precedent on your side. You hope it doesn't get to that,
Right.
but when you're clear about your stance as an advocate for your child, you know that's part of what you have to stand on. So that's the mindset that you have to have going into it.
I'm grateful that you're sharing this with with all of our listeners, because this is something that probably a lot of parents haven't heard. They probably don't know the extent to which they have that power.
The name of the case is William A. versus Clarksville County, Montgomery County. Just 2024, it just happened, but this case serves as a precedent. It guides courts and schools, how they evaluate the adequacy of these IEPs. Yeah. You have to make progress, significant progress, and the implications for future cases is huge. So I'm glad your folks have that knowledge.
So I would like to take this even one step further and ask you a little bit about low income families and having
Mhm.
access to this as well. So I know that it's a little bit of a different process, and they might not have the same ability to get to the school and advocate for their child as often. What do you recommend for those types of situations?
Man, that's the real color, isn't it? It's green. If you don't have the money,
Yep.
really, if you don't have
Yep.
the money,
Yep.
so first of all, there is an aversion to special ed in many communities. They don't want their kid in special ed. They feel like it's like a label or
Yeah.
whatnot. First
Okay.
thing they have to understand is when your kid is, they've been tested and they see there's a learning difference or processing difference or something, and that's actually power in your hands. That IEP, that's a legal document through the federal government. And if the Department of Ed ever goes away, as they're talking about, the Department of Ed hasn't been around forever. Like I remember when we created the Department of Ed, I think it was Jimmy Carter. Before that, there was no Department of Ed. So if the Department of Ed is in there, then it'll go to the Department of Justice. But either way, you've got standing within the federal system to advocate. So don't be afraid of special ed. Like if your
Right.
kid has a designation, just make sure that the things that are in the goals and all the like, it's the right stuff. But don't be afraid of that because it actually allows you to advocate. It puts Uncle Sam on your side, so to speak. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there's power in the group. So I know people don't want to look bad because we have our relationships and no one wants to look like their kid is struggling. But hey, there's power in going together. So having an active PTA that takes this on, that's not afraid, where you're not afraid to look bad or whatever, or have your kid look bad. Like if you can go together with others, it's huge. And I would say others is a broad term. So we have to be willing to advocate with people that may not share our exact demographics. So
Hmm.
if you're a parent that doesn't have that much money, partnering up with a family that does, or a family that speaks a different language, or has a different culture or linguistic background, going together is
Mhm.
politically powerful at the school level and the district level. It
Wow.
really is. But oftentimes we only advocate in silos, meaning only the moms of dyslexic kids will go together, or only the kids who are Black, their parents will go together, or the kids are bilingual, they go. But what if you go together and
Right.
say,
Right.
because what's good for one group is actually good for all. So if you go together and say, we need structured literacy here, we need curriculum that works, that our teachers have an opportunity to plan for. We need teachers who are trained and have professional development for them available. We need to make sure that there's quality tier one instruction every day, that our kids are being screened for processing, like all the things that you want. If you want to fight alone, go ahead. Like I'm not going to stop anyone from fighting, but I'm just telling you it's more efficient to partner with others who have similar interests,
Yeah.
their kids learning to read and advocating together, because that you can do at the classroom level, the school level, the district level, but primarily at the board,
Yeah.
because you're
Mm.
voters, and so they're
Yeah.
responsive to you as a group and as a collective more so than an individual. So that's what I'd say. But then specifically for your child, you've got to ask for specific things. I'd like to see a skill-based scope and sequence of your reading program. Skill-based. Don't tell
Yeah.
me chapter 5 is on Martin Luther King. Like that, fine, wonderful. What skills are being taught in that unit or that lesson? and I need a scope and sequence, because you're not in there just winging it with my kid.
Right.
Okay. Like, I need
Right.
to know what's the plan here. And most teachers, that's fine. Here you go. They'll send you the link. But if they can't, that's a problem. That's a red
Mm-hmm.
flag. How often are people in this school or educators getting quality feedback on their practice? I'm not talking about evaluation. I'm just talking about, like, we want them to grow in a certain area, because if they didn't get it from the graduate school, we talked about the colleges, then there needs to be a concerted effort from the administration here to grow teachers' skill set and capacity. If that's not happening, then I need to know what the plan is for professional development, because my kid has a right to tier one instruction that's going to meet their need. So if the universities aren't preparing the teachers, then best believe we need to have some district-wide PD or some school site-based coaching that's going to support their practice. So those are some basic things that you start with: skill-based scope and sequence. What's the professional development look like? What kind of coaching are teachers getting? And you go from there. And remember, like, if you have to jump on this early, and I would say there's some things that you can do as parents to help with this. If you're grocery shopping, talk to the kid. Ask the
Mm-hmm.
kid to read the materials. You're watching television, turn on the subtitles. Those the thing on the TV. You're watching the football game, turn it on. Let the announcer talk about it, and they can read it. Just little things that we can do where you can kind of get a sense of where a kid is at in terms
Mm-hmm.
of their language skills, their listening skills, and also as they're starting to learn to read. Those would be some of the early things that I do as a parent.
That's I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I hope we have parents and educators out there taking notes while they're listening and writing this all down, because this is stuff that's and I've been in education a long time. My mom was an educator. That it never occurred to me.
Yeah, and some of that stuff is free. I know we can have a reading intervention program and spend all the money in the world, and that's fine. If you got a good program, that's great. But there are some things. So for parents, we have to get used to talking to our kids again. I
Mm-hmm.
know they've got their devices. And, I've had teenagers. I get it. Like, they'll go in their room and just, like, you won't see them for a day. Like, they'll
Yep.
just be there. We have to talk to our children and get our children. No. We need our children to talk to us, because we
Yeah.
could talk at them all day.
Yeah.
But we need them to talk and back and forth. That's part of developing their language skills. I'm not saying be the police, like, whatever. You want to have the kids on devices. My kids use devices, like, but I make them talk. You have to get them to talk and come out of that bag. First of all, it's good to develop their language skills. Those are leadership skills.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it gives us, it's like our early warning system to know when something's wrong. Hey, did you see this? And tell me about that. And are they processing information? My daughter, who's dyslexic, I can remember going through a Vegas. Don't judge me. The travel ball team used to have the kids stay at this. I don't know how they got, but we stayed at the casino. We would go through the casino to get out, and you get lost. You can't. It's all the same. Like, they do it on purpose. Like, you don't know the lights and the noise and all that. And I'm lost. And she's like, "Oh, Dad, it's that way." I'm like, "How did you know that?" She's like, "Oh, well, because I smelled this. I could hear the sound of this. Or there's the floor here has like a rubble type of feel." She was using all of her senses.
Mm-hmm.
She's dyslexic,
Wow.
so she uses her senses different. I was like, "Oh my gosh." So we have to give children opportunities to develop their senses
Mm-hmm.
in more than just the traditional ways, because you never know what they're going to need those senses for. That's why, at MIT, they call MIT, it's like the dyslexia capital or something like
Yeah.
that. Oh, they call dyslexia the MIT disease. It's not a disease, but they moniker it as the MIT disease, because NASA recruits from MIT because they've got so many kids there who are dyslexic. Half those scientists at NASA, they're dyslexic. They recruit from there because they have learned to use their senses differently, and that's an advantage in some areas. So as a parent, you have to keep your kids from getting cold and from getting like destroyed by this system. You got to keep them in there long enough to whereas what they consider to be a deficit in some say actually can become an asset, because they've been developing their senses differently for many, many years. 42% of self-made millionaires are dyslexic.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason for that. It's because
42%.
42%. Now, at the same time, 48% of the incarcerated population in our country is dyslexic.
That's what I was wondering about too,
Did you
because
say
you hear
3%?
48%.
48.
48.
So
Yeah.
you can go either way. I mean, it's getting them the support they need. You ever watch that Shark Tank show? You remember the
Yeah.
one where they try to invent? Okay, well, 3 of those sharks are dyslexic.
Yeah.
Mr. Wonderful, the bald guy, him, Damon John, and
Barbara Cochran.
Barbara. Yeah, Barbara. They're dyslexic. It can be an advantage in business, but you got to survive the school system.
Mm-hmm.
You got to survive it. Our kids are getting cold, like they're dropping out. They're washing their hands of the whole thing, and we've got to get to the point where they stay in it long enough to benefit from some of the the upshot of some of the challenges they've had to deal with. I'm not saying it's necessarily an advantage, but how you navigate it ends up being an advantage because you develop your senses fully in other ways as well as just the traditional ways.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the school is such a crucial point in making sure the kids can go and develop those senses or go to that school to prison pipeline like you've talked about before.
We often hear about that school to prison pipeline. It's almost like I said with Ennis, it's almost like a cliche. It's like a cliche. Man, it's real. The Department of Justice in 1993 put out a report about reading being a cause of incarceration, not just a correlation. And they talked about the different things that impact young people ending up incarcerated. And they're like, this is an issue. And they pointed their fingers square at the universities. And they said basically the teachers, the professors are more concerned with ideology than they are making sure that teachers have the basics of reading. This was 30 years ago, 1993, 32 years ago. And it kind of was just, jails don't mince words. Yeah. They tell it just the way it is all 100 proof, no chaser. And they said, yeah, the issue, this is why they're coming to jail. They can't read. And so the frustration that builds up leads to delinquency, and it ends up, it's very sad, but it doesn't have to be that way. Colleges have got to get their act together. I don't care how good your football team is. If you're not teaching kids to read, if you're not preparing teachers to teach kids, then you shouldn't be getting public money. This is the mandate. This is what we as citizens need from you as a university.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Hey, Melissa.
Hey, Aimee.
So let's talk about who we met at IDA, Tumbleweed.
Oh, I love Tumbleweed's decodable books, and they're for striving readers in grades 2 through 6. My favorite thing about them, in addition to the storylines, is the inclusion of comprehension, spelling, and vocabulary activities.
Yes, and there's no guessing because they took out the visual distractions. They still have illustrations, but not right next to the print.
And Tumbleweed is easy to implement with any core or intervention program. Their teacher guides are jam-packed with multimodal approaches.
Check them out at tumbleweedpublishing.com. Hi, this is Aimee Rodenroth, and as part of the Dyslexia Duo podcast team and owner of Discovery Dyslexia Services, I want to talk to you about my business. Our COUT-trained team offers expert virtual or in-person therapy located in Prosper, Texas, using proven dyslexia curricula like Take Flight, Build, MTA, Alphabetic Phonics, and Reading by Design. We also provide crucial independent evaluations and advocacy services. Don't wait. Empower your child today. Visit www.discovereed.com to learn more. That again is www.discoveread.com. Discovereed, covering all your dyslexia needs. Let's return to the show.
So I was wondering, because I remember hearing a report that, you talked about the prison pipeline, that now they're starting to give prisoners reading screeners to detect for possible dyslexia. What do they do with those screeners after that? Are they providing remediation and life skills after that? Okay.
This is the first Trump administration. He signed the First Step Act. And that came from Senator Cassidy down in Louisiana.
Yes.
It was advocated for by, Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, all these folks that people might laugh at. But guess what? For whatever reason, criminal justice reform, this was part of it. They advocated for that. And then Senator Cassidy from Louisiana, his wife's a teacher, I believe, or Laura Cassidy, they opened up a school, the Key Academy in Louisiana. But they've got a dyslexic daughter. And so they put this in that bill, Senator Cassidy did, that says, if you're in the federal penitentiary, we're going to screen you for risk of dyslexia when you come in, and then give you the help to get a GED or like an equivalency to a high school, and give you the help to get that. Now, that is now law. And people can argue about the amount of money they allocated for it or whatever, but it is a huge, huge piece. So I've actually, oh my God, this is so bad. I've actually had engagements with young people who are, let's just say, high risk. And they have been involved with the justice system, like, and what I told them was, how ignorant are you that you would do something high risk and go to prison in a state penitentiary? I said, at least be smart enough to know the difference between a state crime and a federal crime. Because if you commit something that's if you catch a federal case, at least they'll screen you for dyslexia and you can get help to get a high school diploma or a GED. But if you go, I actually there were guys crying because they're like, how ridiculous is it? You're going to risk your life, liberty, and freedom, and you're going to come out just as ignorant as you were when you went in there. They were stunned. Like, I am brutally honest. Like, listen, I don't want you to commit any crime, to be clear. I don't want you to commit any crime. But my God, you're in San Quentin. You're going to San, which is a state penitentiary out here. Like, I'm so grateful that law was written and passed. Bipartisan. Thank you, Senator Cassidy down in Louisiana, for making this a real issue. I vote on issues like this. Like, I understand the politics and the theater and all that. I want to know who's helping our kids. This is what I'm concerned about. So right now, I have a nephew who benefited from that law.
Oh, wow.
Did not know they were dyslexic. Like you say, it runs in families.
Yeah.
But we didn't know at the time what was going on. It was just, my brother just thought that, I don't know, the kid, it was bad. I don't know what he thought, but went to jail or went to prison, was screened, just found out they're dyslexic, and now got an AA because went to community college afterwards, and actually was managing hotels for a while, like the manager, managing staff, like doing very, very well, very well, but thought that, and I did a little recording with him, just thought that something was wrong with him. A lot of our kids who are dyslexic, they don't realize they have a problem. They think they are a problem. They think something's wrong with them, that they're broken. And so then they start acting out in different ways, not realizing, no, man, you just got this processing difference, and we work on this and work on that, and you're going to be all right. Matter of fact, that could be an asset, how you handle this, but they don't get that far oftentimes. They get chewed up by the machine. So that First Step Act, thank God for that. Hopefully there's a second step and a third step, but the first step was, we're going to screen these kids, young people, or you get incarcerated in the federal penitentiary, we're going to screen you and then get you the help to get a GED so that you can actually make a transition in your life to be a constructive, productive member of society.
So if you could write a second act or a third act to go with that, third step with that, what would you suggest?
Oh my goodness. I mean, you give me the keys of the kingdom.
I am.
Well, first of all, I would say we can't have a wait to fail model.
Right.
So the first act is in the penitentiary. The second act really should be the first one, which is you have to cut it at the root. Kids should be screened for dyslexia, K1, 2. K1, 2, all of them get screened, and the help to get what they need. So that means that universities are making sure that their teachers understand the science reading and have proven the skill to apply it. I don't really care how much theory you know. I need to know that when you have a roster of children, that you can actually do the thing. You can actually apply the skills that you've learned. That should be part of getting a license. That would be the first part of it. And I'm going to make sure that you're paid accordingly, because that's a skill that is high value to society, right? So that has to be the first thing. The next thing is, you got to make sure that every child, the materials that they're using have been proven to work for the greatest number of children. That means there should be some randomly controlled trials. There should be, state-sponsored studies. Those things cost millions of dollars. Publishers don't do that because, one, they've told me this, they're very expensive, and two, nobody reads them. Why would we spend millions of dollars to prove that this stuff works for kids if nobody even reads it? We're not, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our shareholders. We can't just waste millions of dollars. Okay, well then maybe the state should do it. But our kids shouldn't be guinea pigs. We should know the stuff works before you
Mhm.
put it in front of our child and give it to teacher. Like that would be part of the second step. The third thing is, and this may be a little bit controversial, but whatever. So in Mississippi, they have a third grade gate. In other words, you're not going to pass third grade if you're not reading at a very basic level. Now, there are people that say this is a racist policy. They say it's very controversial. But having talked with the leaders, the architects of that initiative, first of all, they did it and it worked. They actually retain fewer kids now than they used to. See, and everyone's up in arms. Oh, this is racist, or this is whatever. All the drama and the noise. What people don't realize is that policy was about the kids, but it really wasn't about the kids. It was about the adults. You have to make it, at some point, you have to cut the, let me just say it. I'm sorry if the listeners, you have to cut the crap.
Yeah.
You got to cut the crap. At some point, you have to stop it where it is and say, enough. Enough is enough. Because really what that policy did was it forces the adults to move differently. Right? So if I know that in third grade, we're not just going to pass kids along and social promotion, if I know that this is actually on the books, guess what? All of a sudden, meetings that should be held get held. All of a sudden, help that should be given, it's given. All of a sudden, observation and feedback and curriculum and materials, all of a sudden the adults start moving differently because they don't want to hold that kid back. You can't hold every kid back in third grade. So now the adults start moving differently. So the second step would be also making sure that we cut this game, this shell game that we play, and say, no, by third grade or second, our kids have to be here. And if they're not, we're going to move heaven and earth to get them the help they need. But we're not just going to keep shuffling kids along until, it's the next teacher's problem or the next, no, they're going to get the help they need here. And we're going to move heaven and earth to make that happen. And we're not going to pass them along. They're going to come right back to you, and there's going to be a plan. So guess what? Adults, figure it out. Wow. So that would be a big part of it. That's not politically popular. People are not going to like that. But I'm just telling you what worked over there. Y'all might not like Mississippi. Y'all might not like Alabama, but it's working. It's working. Good. And they're retaining fewer kids now than they did before. It's because they stopped the musical chairs and the shell game and all that type of stuff. They said, no, we're going to hold a standard. We're going to give all kids the help they need to meet that standard. That would be the next step.
I'm so happy to hear that that's actually working. It is controversial. Absolutely. Very but I'm happy to hear that it's working. And honestly, my son he's actually a gifted child, but he has ADHD to the extent that he just didn't perform. And he kept being pushed along. And we were saying he got to his senior year and he was struggling to get all of his work done. We're like, why are we doing all of this? Yeah. He obviously is not performing where he needs to be. Maturity wise, he wasn't where he needed to be. Why are we doing all of this? Acting like he's ready to graduate when obviously he's not. And hopefully he's not listening to the Stepos episode.
Say it with all the love of a mother. I understand.
Absolutely. My point is, I totally agree with this, that it's a broken system. It was broken for him. It's broken for all of these kids with dyslexia. It's broken for kids with other learning differences. It's broken and it needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed early.
What is the impetus or what is the pressure to push him along? So let's say he's in third grade and he's struggling to read a little bit. He's got some issues, ADHD, like he's, attention issues, which by the way, dyslexia and ADHD, oftentimes those go together. Those comorbidities a lot of times. But let's say he's struggling in third grade to read and what's the pressure? Why is there this pressure to pass him on? What is that? What is the thinking behind that?
I don't really know. And I think what's interesting is I just read a thread on Facebook today where parents were talking about how there's all this pressure to get their kids into advanced math so that they can be ready to take algebra in ninth grade and all these other things. And I was thinking, and then they said none of the grades matter until they get to freshman year. And I thought, that brings up a good point. Like, why are we pushing them so hard when they're struggling in certain areas? Why not just take a step back, get them caught up to where they need to be? Why does it have to be, okay, now you're supposed to be in third grade, you're in third grade, when you're not on third grade level?
Yeah, this is so huge. I've done a lot of podcasts, so we've never broached this topic before. But, so I've been married twice. My first wife, may she rest in peace, we have a daughter. It came time for her to go to school, and I wanted to retain her. I wanted her to do kindergarten twice. Her mother said no. The pressure was, we got to get her in daycare. We got to work. We got to do all this. Got to pay the bills. So let's just put her in. I was like, why? Let's give her more time. I was a teacher, but my former wife won the day. Right? So we put her in. Now she's now Dr. Weaver. She's doing great. No issues. Wonderful. So I'm remarried, but I said to myself, I'm not losing that argument again. Like this I got 2 new kids. Now I'm not losing this to, not this time. So in the second go around, we had both our kids did preschool, and they did a private kindergarten, and they did kindergarten in public school. So we held them back that way, and they were ready. Like they could read. I taught them to read and all that stuff. But the conversation with my wife was, because she wanted to get them in school, just like and I was like, well, would you rather have an extra year to be a kid,
Yeah.
or a year to be an adult?
Right.
Like just from a human standpoint, like life is pretty good when you're 5. You know what I'm saying? Life, like you can rush them to pay bills if you want to, but you're not really losing very much. So we have to get out of this mindset of, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world if we hold a kid back. Come on, man. They're 5, 6. And even if they're in the 3rd grade, like, yes, they'll miss their kids, their friends, and they may have to change schools if you really are worried about that. But the opportunity to give them more time to resolve some of these issues can change the trajectory of their life. Now, my son, he's a great student. He did wonderfully, and it didn't really matter. He's one of the older kids in his class, fine. But it allowed him, there was less social pressures on him because he was a little older. So he was one of the kids who knew more. He was a little bit taller. Great, wonderful. My daughter, who is dyslexic, my youngest daughter, if we had not made the decision to hold her back, heaven only knows what would have happened. Heaven only knows. It took us forever to figure out one anyway. If we didn't have that extra year, because she knew how to read, and that's what sometimes people they think kids with this can't read. That's not necessarily the case.
That's right.
Right.
Oftentimes they learn to read. It's just a grind. It's just, it's tough, the processing and all. So for her, she at least had some time to establish a good foundation. Went to school and had to deal with the nonsense. But if she didn't have that time, I don't even want to think about what could have happened. So we have to start looking at kids and time and giving them the opportunities they need to grow and acquire the skills they need from a kid standpoint and from a long-term perspective, and not from an ego standpoint or feeling like it's a shameful thing. No. If there's 3rd grade gate and your kid can't read or not read proficiently or base level, hey, come on now. We're thinking long-term. No one's ever asked that before. I'm glad that you guys brought that up. I really am.
It's awesome.
Well, great.
And I was thinking because I have 3 kids, but they're all chronological adults, but they're kids. And when my daughter was in middle school, I want to say it was 7th grade year, I had to go to a special meeting because they said, your daughter needs to know what she's going to do when she goes to college. I was like, are we in 7th grade? And I'm like, well, okay, why? And it was a big parent meeting because they had to decide what track she was going to study on at the middle school and then later high school. And I was going,
wow.
Well, wouldn't it be kind of the same, I would think? I mean, she needs to get her math. She needs to get her English. I'm oversimplifying this. Part of me thought, okay, maybe she should be thinking this. And then the other part of me was thinking, but she's 7th grade. She's got a long time to make up her mind as to what she wants to do when she's an adult,
Yeah.
And I think we push our kids sometimes and don't give them the time that they need to make some of these decisions.
Yeah. I know there are some parents and educators who believe that you should get your kids off to a good start. I have no problem with that. I have that mindset too. And I was like, listen, I have kids, they're little black kids. I got to make sure when they go into school, they know how to read. Like that was my thing. I didn't want to I'm not against the mindset of preparing kids. If you want to teach your kids to read early, go for it. Like whatever your demographics are, whatever languages you speak, like fine, have at it. But what I do know is kids ought to be able to be kids.
Right.
And we can't have a system that's pressuring them so much that they never actually, like, I'll give you an example. And this is what people I don't think consider when it's time to talk about dyslexia and other learning differences, sometimes schools will say, okay, well, we'll just give you an after school program, or we'll give you an extra class of this or that. Okay, well, so now the kid suffers through school from 8 to 3. Now all of a sudden you've got an extra after school program of more stuff that they can't stand. So now it's 3 to 4:30. So that means all day they hate it.
Mm-hmm.
That means they're not playing soccer, they're not playing football, they're not playing cheerleading, they're not doing it. They have a right to be kids.
Right.
And to have friends and to do things. And we wonder sometimes why kids hate school. So I would advise parents on this wise to say, you have to make sure your kid has something to hold on to. If they're struggling with dyslexia or something else, that can't be their whole world. Thank God my daughter played softball. Like, she loves softball. She's good at it. She's been playing it and all this stuff and traveled and all. If it wasn't for that, she might have just tapped out of school a long time ago. You can't let it just be a grind 24/7. And then when they get home, all the conversations about their homework and what they are and aren't doing, and why can't you be more like your sister, and and all. Like, at some point, kids just say enough is enough. You have to make sure they're involved in something. I don't care whether it's scouts or your church, something. They got to do something besides school that they actually like. Otherwise, and we forget that because we're so focused on the academics, rightfully so, but that's why it's so important to get the tier 1 stuff, the in-school stuff right. So that after school, man, come on, man. Can I go jump rope? Can I go to the Boys and Girls Club? Can I go camp? Can I do something?
Yeah.
There has to be space for them to cultivate other interests as well. And that's part
and
of
not do 5 hours of homework.
That's
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it was bad. I remember, and I'm an educator, and I could not wait for my kids to be done with school, be done with their formal education. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
The last 2 especially. But
Yeah. So as parents who are advocates, just make sure that, in addition of being fierce and advocating for the kids, you have to also fiercely protect their opportunities to be kids.
yeah.
And if that means you have to delay things for a little bit and hold them back a year when they're really small, okay, fine. Give them extra to be a kid. That's no skin off your back or off the kid's back. You forget at 7 years old, like, you're pretty much roll with anything. So, and it's very early to do that than later. The earlier, the better. Giving kids a gift of time.
Okay, so I have a question for you about, I know you've been a seasoned educator for years. What is your most proverbial rags to riches story regarding a student with dyslexia?
I won't say rags to riches. I'll say the one that inspires me the most.
Okay.
I had a student, let's just say her name started with the letter A. And I had her in 5th grade, and her reputation was she was a fighter. She wouldn't put up with any guff from the boys or the girls. And she lived up to that reputation. I had a habit of, I used to always go to the principal and I said, give me your 5 students that nobody wants to deal with. I want those. Once you know how to teach a kid to read, then those kids are usually your best students because that's all they need, usually. So I didn't know. We worked together. We worked on her reading. She learned, she grew, she stopped fighting so much. And about 4 years ago on Facebook, she posted this thing where she said, I just want to thank my 5th grade teacher, Mr. Weaver. He doesn't know this, but I have dyslexia. And now I'm a teacher. I teach 5th grade like my 5th grade teacher, and I'm loving it. And I'm seeing kids like me there all the time. And I love this job. And thank you, Mr. Weaver, for inspiring me. And listen, like they say, be still my heart. Yeah, man. I just, that's all she needed. She just you just never know what kids are going to do. You just don't know all the potential they have and how they're going to move. And, you just don't know. You got to give them a chance. So for me, that was one that really hit home because I didn't know she was dyslexic. I was just teaching the way that all kids need.
Right.
But to hear her tell it, that was a game changer for her. And now she's doing her thing and a teacher. And I couldn't be happier, prouder, or whatever you want to say. So yeah, that's my story.
That's
love
It's not,
that.
heartwarming.
Yeah.
yeah. And, when you say rags to riches, teachers don't make a lot of money. You're not doing it for so it's not rich. But, there's something else to be said. Poverty isn't always about money, and neither is wealth. I know people who have a lot of money, and I wouldn't trade lives with them. You couldn't pay me to, because they're miserable. Conversely, I know people. I remember one time I was teaching and I was going to work, and there are a lot of homeless people in California. And there's this family that a couple that was under the bridge. They were hugged up. They're always in there. They're laughing. They're talking. And I sat there thinking, here they are, homeless, living under a bridge, and this couple. Like I know people who have lots of money who you never see them smile at each other.
Mhm.
Never. So wealth isn't all about money. So to me, student A is living a dream, and I'm so proud of her. I really am. Really am.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah.
Ah,
So-
my babies.
I know, right? I mean, and you see
Yeah.
them out in public as adults with their own kids, and you're going,
Yeah.
I still have this image of you as a third grader in my head. You're
Yeah,
supposed to be
yeah,
30 something years old.
Yeah. Yeah. And when she posted her picture, she wore old school teacher outfit, big frilly dress, mother hen type dress. I was like, well, you go head on. Own it, girl. Teach those babies, So, but you just never know. You just never know what a kid's gonna do. You just gotta give them the wings they need to go and reach those
Yeah.
goals. So yeah. Thanks for asking that question. I really appreciate it.
So, how do you perceive in school system? I know what I've seen, but how girls and boys are treated differently, or even children of color are treated differently from each other. How do we? Gosh, I don't even know. What have you seen? What's your thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
Great question. So, part of what's so pernicious about that wait to fail model is we're going to wait until you're unmanageable.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to wait until we have to deal with you. Girls, and every girl is different. You never know. However, for girls, what they'll say is if she's struggling, they'll say, well, she's just so nice. She's just so sweet. Just give her more time. This is how it was with my daughter. Just give her more time. Everyone loves Margot. Oh, she's such a nice child. Like she's the helper and all this stuff, right? Whereas, and so it just goes on and on and on, and there's no emergency. Whereas boys, oftentimes, not always, like I say, it's not always the case, but oftentimes the boy will be the one who will act out in a way that you have to deal with. I wish my daughter had been a chair flipper, right? Because if she had been a chair flipper, then, yeah, she'll get sent to the office. Yeah, she'll get in trouble, but we got to figure this out because we can't just have this little girl out here flipping chairs, right?
Right.
Boys are oftentimes force the issue because of behavior. So that's a big difference in how things are handled is that who creates more of an emergency or a crisis? Girls oftentimes, you have to wait longer to deal with it because it doesn't present the same. And we have socialized our girls to be more deferential and to not cause problems and to just be quiet, stay in your, like all that. It shows up in schools and kind of a stir they call. Now, you always gonna have those girls who will, cuss you out and do this, like fine, there's that group, but usually they're a little bit more demure than that. And so our system doesn't respond to them the same way they do to boys.
Yeah.
So parents of daughters, you have to be even more vigilant. You can't wait until your child is eating lunch in the bathroom by herself crying because she's not getting what she needs. You can't wait until your child, like those of us with daughters, by the time the system realizes we have an emergency here, she has gone through so much that they will never even recognize because she's dealing with it on the inside, and the social emotional impact of it is withering. So that's the first thing. Now, in terms of race, and I would put class in here too, because I've done some work in Appalachia, and it's oftentimes it goes by class as well. It's the expectations. It's what George Bush said years ago: the soft bigotry of low expectations. What do we expect for different groups of children? So let's say you come from a family that doesn't have much money, or let's say you have a sibling who struggled. People can say, yeah, well, what can you expect? They may not say it outwardly, but the expectation, the alarm bell doesn't ring when that child doesn't excel, or when they're not reading, or things aren't aren't well. Well, what can you expect? Their family's got some issues, and that family, and I had their sibling years ago, and all that stuff comes into play. So our expectations for different children, unfortunately, we're human beings, varies, and that's why it's important for the system to have guardrails in place. That's why you screen kids early, to take that outside of the realm of, I think something might be wrong, or I perceive something might be wrong, or based on my experience. No. We're screening you because it's Tuesday, okay? And in first grade on Tuesday, this is what we do at this point in the school year. It's not because I think you're this or not that, or your race, or your class, or your language, your economics, or what your parents did, and who's alcoholic. None of that. It's Tuesday. We're going to screen. So that's where policy comes into place, district policy and state policy, to say there are some guardrails up so that we're going to serve all kids, and we're going to make sure that no one's falling through the cracks based on biases of whatever kind. The other thing I'll say on this, and then I'll turn this loose, is what the research says is there are about 5% of kids who are going to read regardless. You really don't have to do anything. Just don't mess them up. Like they're okay. Then you got another 30% or so of kids who are going to read in school. Just teach them something. It could be Montessori, whole language, balanced literacy, phonics, like whatever. Just be consistent, do it well. They'll learn to read. They'll pick it up pretty effortlessly. The rest, they need it structured. Okay, so that's about 35% or 40% that they're going to be okay. Well, that's about 95% of our teachers come from those two groups. So it's difficult for them to perceive what the majority of kids need, because for them, they acquired literacy pretty readily, right? Not realizing the actual majority of the population, the kids in their classrooms, they need it taught in a structured way, systematic, explicit, direct, with all the pieces, the oral language development, the phonics, the phonemic awareness, the vocabulary, the comprehension, the fluency, all that. They need it. And they need it regularly. They need fully prepared teachers consistently every day. And so from a policy standpoint, just from a justice standpoint, we have to make sure that we're targeting all our kids and not just the ones that are in that 30 to 35% group or 40% group. Male, female, black, white, second language, first language, third language, fifth language, whatever, they have a right to read. So those are some of the difference when it comes to race, class, gender, et cetera. We got to remove our learner's bias. And those of us who are building these systems, if we learn to read easily, we build systems that work for us.
Yeah.
Well, what's wrong with those kids? Like, we're teaching the stuff. Like, what's the problem? Oh, friend, you don't realize that you're that 5%. You're that group that it was, so you don't perceive. It's like humidity. I'm in California, you're in Texas. When I go to Texas and I bring that humidity, but if you're there, you don't perceive it because you're used to it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's the same thing with reading. Those people who are in charge of the system, it's difficult for them to perceive what the majority of kids need because they didn't learn to read like that. They're that 5% group. And so their learner's bias shows up in the curriculum they pick, how they train people, the professors, the way they teach their methods classes, the policies that we enact. It takes people who either have a child with a learning difference or they have dyslexia themselves or something to say, oh, wait a second, that's not going to work for my child. That policy is not going to work. That curriculum is not. You have to be more vocal because the other folks who are running the show, they just don't get it. With the best of intentions, they just don't get it. So those are some of the things you have to watch out for in terms of inequities, because it does end up impacting the kids who need it done explicitly, systematically, and directly.
I think
Thank
we
you.
were fortunate to have Tyncee Miller here
Yeah.
in Texas for a good portion of time. She was on the State Board of Education, and she had a child with dyslexia, and she was a big
Again, when it's important to you,
Right,
those are the
right.
people
Yeah.
that you
She
want in
pushed for it.
place. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I would have loved to have heard her. Please send me the link to that. I would love to hear her perspective on it, because policymakers and executives who have that background, they tend to move differently.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to me. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow. Huh. Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her. What else you got?
Good Lord, I feel like I'd sit here and just let you freeform with your thoughts.
Yeah,
I could
we
just
covered a
listen to
lot
it.
of topics.
Well, what you're saying is better than our topics.
Well, don't let me get off script. If you got a question you want to ask, you go ahead. Don't let me dictate the conversation.
Well, I actually do have a question. I had another speaker who had said that, since COVID, okay, a lot of our students are becoming less self-reliant in taking command of their learning. And I see it rebounding back, but I was wondering, what were your thoughts on that? They're not taking control of their own learning, less self-reliant and more dependent on others is basically the wording I had.
Since COVID.
Yeah. I know we don't see our kids showing up for school near like we used to.
Yeah,
we're
right.
closing campuses left and right out here in Texas because our kids really haven't shown back up.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they're not showing back up?
Couple of things. Well, because public ed, one. Two, we have charters where they can make that choice and go to the charter school. Three, a lot of parents are deciding to homeschool their kids, or four, they just never came back. If they didn't do those first three, I don't know what happened to them. I don't know where they are. But I was in a district before I retired where we had some low income kids, and they took the laptop and didn't come back, because we did the distance learning, and you just going, what happened?
Oh my God. Oh, thanks for the free computer. I'm out.
Right. Oh God, out of here.
Well, listen, let me tell you that's all across the country. Districts across the country are struggling with attendance, and most of the time they determine the money that they get from the state based on attendance. And so the pressure that's caused, Oakland's about $100 million in debt. So is San Francisco. It's like all across the country because kids aren't, where are the kids? They exist, they're here. But I would agree with you in that I think COVID was a wake-up call. Parents saw their kid, at the computer doing the stay-at-home work or whatever, and they were stunned. And frankly, after kindergarten, you have to go to school. It's the law. So parents are balancing this. It's a mandate. I have to send my kid to school, but at the same time, I don't know what they're talking about. That doesn't even make sense to me. And if my kid's not happy, if my kid goes to school and comes back with more problems than they started with, at some point in time, parents have to make choices. I don't begrudge any parent from exercising that option.
Right.
And I'm not going to get into the whole charter versus district thing. I don't care. I just want kids to learn to read.
Right.
Like whatever. Right. And so it is an issue that parents are dealing with all across the country, and systems are struggling to adapt. And they're thinking, well, it's because we need better facilities, or we need a better sports program. We need this, we need that. Or we need a social emotional program, or they come up with all kinds of reasons, not realizing the kid does not like school.
Yeah.
It's not fun for them. They're miserable. And so if I have a choice to homeschool my child, I can at least make sure that at the end of the day, my kid's not pulling her hair out. I can at least make sure that at the end of the day, my kid's not an emotional wreck. And I can't do any worse. I can't. They're struggling to read. I can't do any worse than that. And actually, I might get, 100 Easy Lessons to Teach Your Child to Read book, or the Direct Instruction book from Engelman, or some other, book like that. And I can teach this. It's got instructions, 100 steps. I can do it. And people are just making those choices. So no, I don't begrudge them at all. I know it's a strain on public systems. I get it. I get it, but that's not my first concern. I know for some, I get it. They're institutionalists. They want the institution of public education to be strong. Fine. I have no problem with that, but I'm unapologetically kid first. So what's best for kids? And if what's best for kids is for, children and families to make decisions elsewhere until we get our acts together in the public system, fine. Like what we have to do to save our kids. That's just the bottom line of it. So I was curious to hear your perspective on that, because I know there's a lot in politics gets involved in it too and all that, but I'm not a politician. I don't have to say stuff to just make people feel good. My thing is what's best for kids. And What kind of parent would we be to send our child to a school that's not serving them well?
Right. Right. And in
You
place
know?
where they're just I know that like my child, she chose her senior year. They had the option of coming back or staying. She goes, "Oh, I'm happier at home." She did
Wow.
well, she did well
Wow.
with her virtual classes. It was her senior year. I was like, "Really? Are you sure you don't want to
Wow.
go in?" No, she
That
was
says a
much
lot right
happier.
there. Yeah.
Doesn't it? I thought so too.
Says a lot. Yeah. Kids are honest with you. If we listen to them, they're very, very honest, both in terms of what they say, but also what they do.
Mhm.
I tell people all the time that behavior is feedback. You're watching how a kid behaves, that's telling you something.
Mhm.
How they behave in class, how they are with their peer group and all that. That's feedback. That's telling us a lot. If we just watch them and pay attention to them, we can learn a lot about what they need and how they're responding to what's going on in their lives.
Do you think there's any saving public school with the way things are looking right now? It's not looking too good, but
So that's a great question. That's a great question. Well, first, let me ask you, what do you think? Do you think they're a saving? Because I have an answer, but I want to hear what you think first.
you keep doing this to us.
Hey, want to hear it.
I think that there's no saving public school until public school starts listening to educators and to parents.
Interesting. Interesting. And listening to them in terms of what they need or what they want, or what do you mean?
Both.
Mhm.
Meaning, so if parents are concerned about their children getting the services similar to what we provide with dyslexia interventions, or they're concerned about their IEP goals not being met, or the group sizing too big, or their classroom sizes being too big, or the curriculum not meeting their child's needs. If those are concerns that they have and the school district doesn't listen, or if the school board meetings are going as crazily as they are in my district right now.
Oh yeah, they are.
And the school board isn't listening. The school board is doing stuff behind closed doors, supposedly. I don't see how that's going to change anything, how things are going to get better. So those are some concerns I have. So they're not listening to the parents. And then as far as the teachers, I don't think the teachers are really receiving a lot of ability to give feedback on what works and what doesn't work in the classroom.
And to back up what you're saying, I just had a coordinator from another district because she wanted this additional training for her teachers. And so she had gone before the board and she goes, "They said we didn't have the money to do this." And I was like, they want the in-service, they want the training, they want the knowledge, but they're
Right.
saying, "No, we can't do it."
Mhm. Well, I will say this. I tend to agree with you all. I think public education has to save itself.
Mm.
Like, you save our kids, but you better save yourself, because people are making choices. And you can see by the attendance figures all around the country, people are opting out. And you can wail against charter schools all you want to, or private schools. People with the means and the knowledge are not going to send their kids to schools where they don't think their kids are being served. That's just common sense, And parents, there was a national parent survey years ago of about 35,000 parents, where they asked them what their priorities were for the school. And the number one priority was keep them safe. Safety was number one, which makes sense. I send my kid to school. I want my kid to come back safe. I don't want to be on the news. Okay.
Right.
And the second thing was they need to learn how to read. Then there were some other things after that. And our schools are struggling to keep kids safe, and they're struggling to teach kids how to read. That's
Right.
not a good formula for lasting success.
Mm-mm.
And safety is not just physical safety, it's also emotional safety. Like,
Mhm.
I understand people have different beliefs and ideas about what kids should and shouldn't be exposed to, but there has to be some humility in this. I, as a parent, these are my kids. Yes, you're the teacher and the principal, and I know you love them. I appreciate you. I applaud you, but these are my children. I have a right as a parent. I may not want my kid exposed to everything that you're comfortable exposed. Like, I just recognize my rights as a parent, please,
Right.
and focus on keeping them safe and teaching them how to read. Public education's got to be clear about what they're there for. You're not there to ideologically spin my kid left or right. You're not there to some political agenda. You can have whatever you believe, but when my kid shows up, keep them safe, teach them how to read. Understand, I'm the parent. There's this controversy that I've unfortunately kind of stepped into a little bit online, but whatever, I don't care. It is what it is. There is a strain of thought within the education world that we mentioned before, relationships are everything, right? You have to build relationships to be able to teach kids and everything.
Right.
And, I understand that, but look, man, no, yes and no. Like, I want you to get along with my child. I want you to. Like, I want you to be able to teach them and have them listen to, like, all that. But if my kid is 7, you're not going to have a relationship with that child. I hope not. And frankly, I don't want my 7-year-old getting used to a manipulative relationship where the only reason I'm engaging with you is because I want you to do stuff, because I want you to follow my instructions, because I want you to sit down, then I'm going to be nice to you. I don't want my daughter getting used to that kind of transactional relationship anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Just teach. That's all it is. And frankly, as a parent of a teenager, I got news for you. You do not have a relationship with my child. I have gone to back to school night, and like I said, my son was a very good student. He really didn't need us. Like, he was fine. But I went because I need to look the teacher in the eye and say, I am the father. If you need to contact my son, here's my phone number. Contact me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I know teachers who have great boundaries and who are professional, they have no problem with that. And they may still end up engaging with the child, and we may get along great. We might invite you over for dinner. Who knows? But I need you to understand, I'm the parent. You are a great teammate of ours, but I need you to understand your lane. So
Yeah.
I think public education has gotten some things confused, and it is now popular to say you can't even teach without having great relationships with kids. Man, she's 7. Turn to page 1. That's the relationship we have. Turn to page 1. And I have your mother, father, grandparents on speed dial as needed, but we're going to get this work done. And I'm going to be your partner. Like, public education has got to understand its lane and its role, and that parents are giving you their most precious resource. And keep them safe, teach them how to read, and help prepare them for college and career. That's what we need you to do. And there'll be great relationships that come from that, especially with the parents. But you got to keep the main thing the main thing.
I totally
And
agree.
if they can't figure that out, then you know what? If you can't figure that out, then you shouldn't be around our kids. Period. Like, if that's an issue for you, great, mature, responsible teachers have no problem with that. None.
Yeah.
None. But if you do have issues with that, I got other questions for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure.
Wow. I like it. No, my kids always attended the school I taught at elementary. They knew that if they, and let me just say, they were no angels, but if the teacher had to walk them down to my classroom,
Yes.
I wasn't going to do anything at school. It'd be at the house later on.
Oh my God.
It was that fear of waiting for what's going to happen.
That's right. When we get home, that's right. Oh my goodness. Absolutely. That is too funny.
Well, I think we're getting ready to kind of wrap it up a little bit, but you're very, oh my gosh, well versed. And I think our listeners would love to hear some of the things that you would recommend to read or to watch or to articles or anything like that. What are some of your recommendations?
Sure. A few things. Let's see. In terms of reading, I would say it's a funny name, Stanislaw Delane.
Yes.
I know that's good. Yeah. Well, he's got some really good stuff that I would read. If you have the desire to homeschool your kids, I would take a look at, 100 Easy Lessons to get your kid reading. I would look at Rudolph Fleisch's old books, Why Johnny Can't Read, and then 30 years later, Why Johnny Still Can't Read. I'd read that. There was a book called The Marva Collins Way. I would read that. I would go on YouTube and I'd Google the Marva Collins story. There's a movie out, was made with her. I think Cicely Tyson, Morgan Freeman are in that movie. It's an old movie about getting kids to be able to read and do well, and her story as a teacher in Chicago. She wrote a book, there's a movie, and there's lots of YouTube videos about her as well. I know 60 Minutes did a special on Marva Collins, and they tracked her students for years, and they found out how wonderful they did. Kids living in poverty and kids with dyslexia and all kids with all kind of differences, just thriving. So I would read those stories about her because it will help you understand it is possible. It is possible. Like, I know sometimes we can get beaten down and think that our kids can't do it. They can. And her approach to teaching, which is really what the science reading is all about, shows that it is possible. I'd also, in terms of watching, they have the Right to Read film that just came out it's been out a few years now. That's pretty good. You can take a look at that. But also, there's a movie coming out called Left Behind. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, with the story of some moms in New York whose children are dyslexic, and they're starting a school within the public system that focuses on the needs of dyslexic students. It's really powerful. And I forget my guy's name, my U2 drummer. I forget him. He made the
Who's the
music.
U2
Your husband will know.
Say it again, Joe.
Larry Mullins Jr. Right. That's right. Larry Mullins Jr. He made the music, the score for that, a couple of songs just for that. I would watch that. It's pretty good. It's just now coming out. It's at film festivals and stuff. But it'll be in theaters, and they can, I guess, Amazon Prime it or whatever. But it's called Left Behind. That's a pretty doggone good story. Those are a few things. Those are a few things. Also, the NAACP has a national resolution, which means policy for all the state and local branches on dyslexia, talking about what kids need. That was 2014, but now in 2024, there's an evidence-based instruction policy they came out with. So that's good, because it's a sword to fight with. When you go into these board meetings and talking with superintendents or principals, say, hey, listen, this is a civil rights issue. My kid's got something and we need this, that, and the other. And you take a look at this is a civil rights issue. It gives you some standing in many spaces. So those are some things that I would do. There's a lot more that they could do, Aimee, but those are some places that I'd start.
Wonderful. It's a wonderful start. And one of the things I have on my
Maybe
business page.
Maybe you all should write a book.
You know, I was talking about that to my husband, Melissa. I was talking about that. You and I should write a book when we find free time one day.
A dyslexia duo book?
Well, sort of, maybe on methodologies and approaches and things to do with your students.
Cool. I would like that.
You've had a lot of conversations with people. You've had conversations with people all around the country and talked about what kids need, what they don't, and parents and advocacy and all that. To put it in a book and just say, hey, this is what we've learned, I think would be a very good offering to the public. And people, and make it easy to read, you know, accessible for parents, not just super wonky, but just like relatable, and just say, here are some things like, you know, like that could be about, I haven't done that. Maybe I will one day, but I think you all, especially with your listenership, like piling your notes together and say, hey, you know what? We have something we think would be of interest to you. And instead of having to click on all the different things, here it is in one place.
Yeah.
Just think about it. Just consider it. I'd buy it.
Yeah, that was actually something I said to my husband the other day. And then I was like, when? When?
Mr. Weaver could do our forward for us.
There you go. Write our forward for us.
Listen, I would be honored to do it. I've done a few forwards for people who, you know, they do their thing, Dr. So-and-so and this and that. Listen, I'd be happy to. You guys, I mean, when I say I've written forwards for different people who've written books and done great things and all that and participate. I'm trying to get a job done. And so to the degree that I can be helpful, let me know. I want people to have access to the resources they need, and messengers matter.
Yeah.
To have people with real life experiences. Some of these books I see, I'm like, wait, have you ever lived it? Did you have a child that struggled in school? I understand the theory. I understand you've studied this and done. I get that. And I'm not disrespecting your research, Professor. However, if you haven't had a child that struggled to do this thing and had to bear the scars of that journey, man, It's only so much you can tell me. You know, I mean, I hate to be a snob about it, but I want to hear from some parents who've had to, you know, travel that road. So I would encourage you to think about it. I'm sure your listeners would appreciate it as well. In an easy to understand way, conversing in style the same way you do this, I think it'd be a benefit to the sector.
Well, thank you. I thank you. Thank you for all of that. I mean, my goodness, it's just it's very
moving. I can't. Like I'm getting teary eyed over here just thinking about.
Well, sometimes we don't realize where we stand in the field, and what we mean to others. I've had, whether it's a student, a colleague, a friend, or whatever, they'll say, well, you really don't realize what you meant to me, or you really don't know. I got inspiration from your journey. And I think a podcast is great. Movies are great, but, you know, different platforms and different mediums, you have to get the message out. So I've done the movie thing before. We did the one and the other one, Left Behind. You know, I've done plenty of podcasts. They're fun for me. I don't mind doing them. For example, I can go to a professor and say, hey, have you seen this book? Maybe when you're teaching your methods classes, you might want to have your students read this. Read chapter 3 in this book from a parent's perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you just never know where that message can go, but it has to come from people, in my view, that actually have lived it before, and they have children who've lived it before. It would make
honestly, you sitting here talking to us while we were going through all of our interview, I was thinking, gosh, this needs to be a parent education piece.
Workshop.
Teachers need to play this with their parents who have dyslexia or parents who have any kind of other learning struggles. They need to hear what you have to say and how we can help kids from the ground up.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it depends on the audience and what they want. But when you write a book, you get to tell your story.
Yeah.
And people will connect with it as they will. I was in a meeting in San Francisco. I was speaking to this group in San Francisco, and I put up pictures of dyslexic people in my slides. I had Steve Jobs, who founded Apple, because he's from this area. I had Joe Montana. He's a quarterback for the 49ers. This is old. But it's San Francisco 49ers. So they're like, oh, Joe Montana's like, yeah, he was dyslexic. Like, oh, they had Magic Johnson, who, basketball player in LA, or Gary Payton Jr. here in the Bay Area. They're dyslexic. They're like, oh, yes, they're all around you. The issue is not all our kids are 6'9" and can shoot the ball or can run a 4.40. Yeah. Now, most of them are like regular kids, male and female, right? But they need people who are informed and who are advocates and who will stand up for them in the boardroom, in the classroom, in the state house, and then also there's room for people to inform the public via a book, a podcast, a radio spot, or whatever. So just think about it, And if you want to think through some concepts or ideas or whatever, I'm happy to do it. You guys are a force. And I hope that you appreciate the opportunity that you have to make a difference, not just how you're doing now, but what you could do if you're able to get the word out even more through different mediums. So not to put any pressure on you, but I think you have a story to tell. You probably don't realize this stuff to read your own press clippings, but do that.
That's very nice. And well, Melissa, you and I have some talking to do, it sounds like.
Yes, we do.
There you go. Okay. That's what I want to hear.
Okay, Melissa, so ask your question.
I have my magic question that I ask at the end of every podcast. My magic question is, if you had one wish you could grant to our students, what would it be and why?
Every student needs a champion. Every student needs a champion. Like I would love if you had a great curriculum. I would love if you had that and this and that and all the rest. But every student, every child needs at least one person who will just go to bat for them. They need somebody to say, not on my watch. Every child needs somebody. It could be a grandparent. It could be a mom, a dad, an uncle, a coach. I feel for the kids who just don't have anyone. We're so busy with the day-to-day grind of life that there's nobody to fight the battles. Nobody is going to go to the meeting, and nobody's going to talk to the teacher, or nobody's going to, no one wants to offend people, but every kid needs somebody that's going to put them first. So if I had a magic wand, every kid would at least have one champion in their life who's willing to put them first above whatever other pressures and dynamics and whatever. There was this guy in Atlanta, and I was in some theater doing a screening, and so it was packed with parents and everything. This guy in the back raised his hand and said, yeah, I'm working 2 jobs and I got this going on and and I'm trying my best, and my daughter's this, and his daughter's dyslexic, and these things are expensive. The testing is expensive, and I don't know what to do. I was like, man, get a 3rd job. If you're her champion, figure it out. I'm not going to make it easier for you. I wish it was easier, but if you're her person, figure it out. Pass the hat around the family, keep it legal. If you're her person, she is counting on you to figure this out. And I told him that. I was like, listen, man, I feel for you. I've been there before, but if the question is, are you her champion or not? And if you are, don't come with the woe was me stuff. I don't want to hear that. I know it's tough, but if you're her champion, you will figure it out. And so for every child, I would just hope to have somebody in their life who just won't let them go. Somebody who's just going to put them first and be their champion, in ways seen and unseen. So that would be my one wish. What did you call it? What kind of
magic wand? It's her magic question. Yeah.
Magic. That's my answer to the magic question for every child.
Well, is heartfelt, and I completely agree with you. I totally would want that for my students, for anybody too. I just want that for everybody that struggles.
Yeah.
And
Don't let them,
sometimes
don't worry
it's the
about them.
grandparent that has to do that role.
Oh yeah. Sometimes it's a coach, sometimes it's an aunt or an uncle or a big sister or a big brother.
Yes.
A big sister, a big brother, but it's just somebody who says, I got you. I got you. And I know it's tough, I'm not going to let you circle the drain. Man, they're going to have to get through me to get to you. And you might not be popular. They might tease you, you know, mama bear, or, you know, when you come to the school, you know, okay, here he comes.
Oh no, here she is.
Loudspeaker, you know, here they come. You know, you know how it is, you know, fine, let it be. But I'm here for my child. I'm not here to start trouble. It's good trouble. It's not even about you guys. I'm just here to advocate for my child. And I want us to be on the same page, and I want to work with you. You know, it's like Abraham Lincoln said, hard war, easy peace. You know, I'll be your best friend, easy peace. Like we can, you know, but hey, if it's on, it's on. Because I know what side I'm on. It's my kid's side. So that's what I would hope for every child.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. I love it. Love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, Kareem, thank you. I was going to be all formal and say Mr. Weaver. Thank you so much for doing this, for giving up so much of your time to be with us today. And thank you so much.
I feel like we got way more than we even realized we were going to get.
We had no idea. We had no idea.
We just poured your heart and soul into this.
The pleasure has been all mine. I appreciate it. I looked at my calendar and I said, oh, that sounds like fun. That sounds like fun. So I'm happy to do this. It's fun for me, and I love the way you all work together. And you got the peanut gallery in there. You got your husband in the back chiming in every now and then.
He's actually our producer / editor. So he'll.
Is that right, man? He's right on point. You give him a microphone. He's right there.
He's actually at work right now too, so he's listening and he's working.
Oh
at
my
the same
God!
time.
So, anyway, but I appreciate the conversation. You guys were expansive, but also personable. And you gave me a chance to express some things that I probably usually don't express. So thank you for that, and being open to a real, authentic conversation about what our kids need.
Thank you.
We're grateful for it, and we could tell that you love what you do, and you're as passionate about what you do as we are. And we just love that we have this opportunity to talk with you
and to
learn
connect. Oh my gosh. And to connect. I've heard about you for so many years. And one of my ladies that I've been training to therapy level, she's like, oh, I follow Kareem Weaver. And if you could get him on the podcast, I'm like, well, I'll try, man. He's a big name. I don't know.
It's all good. Listen, we're a small organization. We have a website. People can go on and look at it if they want to, but we're a really small shop. We work with districts and states and try to be supportive as we can, whether it's helping them pick curriculum, whether it's helping them create a coaching framework, whether it's making a literacy plan or think through policies. So we do all that stuff. And at the same time, you can never forget that it's about kids. And how can we contribute both to win hearts and minds, which is what this is for, but then also just bring awareness so that we can get our kids what they need. So I'm happy to do this, and I'm thankful for the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thankful for you. So thank you. And we'll be back in touch when the show goes live. We will reach back out to you and let you know when we're publishing it, so you can share it on your sites as well.
Thank you. We will definitely do that. And I think I gave you the email to our communications manager, Lindsay, and you could just send it to me, CC her, and so that she can upload it and all the rest and post it as well. So thank you. Keep up the good work.
The Dyslexia Duo podcast hosts are Aimee Rodenroth,
Melissa Dean.
Our producer is Greg Rodenroth.
You can find us on Facebook at The Dyslexia Duo.
Email us any questions or comments at thedyslexiaduo@gmail.com.
Awareness is so important. Share this podcast with your friends,
family,
and teachers.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.